we have an interesting report about a backdoor that's using both Slack and GitHub for its command and control.
So Matt, I hear you have a story about some malware that uses some legitimate services for command and control.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of interesting. Trend Micro put out a report about a backdoor that they had found, and it's spread by watering hole. So you sort of have to go to the site, and it infects you from there. And then it does a couple stages worth of malware. But the interesting thing is that the command and control is done through GitHub and Slack.
That's interesting.
So GitHub, people know mostly as a code repository. They got this thing called gists, which is sort of a quick way to drop a little bit of text on the site. So the malware, the second stage, reaches out and grabs a gist from GitHub, which is sort of a list of commands that it has to run. The malware itself uses common sites that you might normally see in day-to-day traffic leaving your company. So you may be allowing this out of your network by itself and not know it. And apparently all the different copies of the malware use the same gist. So one of the limitations of the malware is that everything that it's all running the same command. So you update that gist, every copy will go and run those same exact commands. So, I mean, if you're running a large number of different, bots of this malware, that it's like, they all have to run the same thing. It's not really an individual command and control. But when it finds what it's looking for, and there are certain commands that it supports, it'll package that up and use the Slack API to post it to a Slack channel. So whatever's being stolen off the box ends up in a Slack channel somewhere. So it's kind of interesting. I haven't really seen Slack used for that before, and GitHub for the command and control of it.
That's not something you see malware do. Typically malware will, it'll get a payload from a custom domain that's been set up, or a domain that's been compromised, not an official code repository like GitHub or Gist. Yeah.
So it grabs very specific kinds of files. Some of the more interesting ones are the backup files for a Skype installation, which is a little bit weird, right?
Yeah, that is odd.
But it also grabs files for a specific bulletin board management software called Neologic Plus Board. Right, so it's it seems like it's specifically targeted towards either certain people or a certain population of people, because this Neologic is for like bulletin board admin software, right? Also grabs information related to Twitter, Kakao Talk. I don't know what's important about BBS owners that they're the ones being targeted by this malware, but it seems to be the target population. And again, it's a watering hole attack, so it's something that the attacker has to compromise a site that he knows his intended victims are going to visit. And they weren't very specific as to what site was compromised. But it's a very interesting case. I guess the more specific this stuff gets to a target population, the more you're kind of like, well, what's going on here, right? Because if it was some sort of, garden variety, hack whoever you can hack kind of software, then it would be, notable. But someone's got a definite interest here in these BBS owners. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do we know anything thus far about the victims in this instance?
I don't recall anything in particular.
No one's reported that they've, been hit with this malware or anything like that?
No, I think Trend Micro must have found out about it in some way. I'm not really sure if it was reported to them, or if it was like, they found it and decided to say, by the way, you've been hacked. I don't really know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, that could shed some light on, who the target is, because you're right, it is pretty specific.
Yeah. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. Like you mentioned, I mean, it's the first time you've really seen Slack used, kind of as command and control. I mean, I think in the past, I know we've seen other popular kind of communication software, things like Twitter, certainly I think GitHub before, and really, I guess any medium, that you can easily create an account, that you can communicate, that, makes it through a proxy easy, you can use, for nefarious purposes. And
that looks like it might be legitimate, you know what I mean? So like if it was some arbitrary website, we'd probably, wow, that's some site that's never been seen before. Why would, and I would go after that and look at it. But Slack, if you've got a company that allows it through your proxy, or GitHub in particular, those two by themselves are pretty well used, especially in like a developer context.
Yeah. The article mentions that some of the API keys were embedded within the code for Slack. And I'm wondering if Slack and GitHub has been made aware that this is going on, that their services are being used for...
So I can't verify the Slack one, but I know for a fact that the GitHub endpoints that were mentioned, you can no longer reach those. So someone's done some cleanup.
Good.
But it's it's trivial to create another GitHub account and start doing the thing again. So people have to keep an eye out for it.
Yeah.
So it may be worth investigating to see, do I use either of these sites? Do I use file.io, which was the upload site? And just understanding what normal behavior in your network looks like so that if something like this does occur, you can spot it more easily.